What is up, my peepholes? This is your guy, Cly, and welcome back to Budget Tubing. Now today, I'm going to be taking a look at this little guy. This is the Pulse, and it is the latest microphone on the market from THRONMAX. This is a USB cardioid condenser microphone, and as you'll see throughout the course of this video, it does a lot of things differently from the rest of the USB mics on the market. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes you have to shake things up to innovate. And seeing as how those differences are going to be the running theme of today's video, let's jump right in with the design of this microphone. As you can see, it's not exactly that big, and it has a bit of a can-like design, which I'll admit I really like because it invokes a retro aesthetic while still looking pretty modern, and that brings out my love of retrofuturism. As for the construction, up at the top here, this does seem to be a painted plastic, but based on the temperature I'm getting right now, this section right here seems to be anodized aluminum. So they're not adding heft by throwing in a large slab of metal like another microphone I can mention in order to imply value. And the differences continue onward if I roll the microphone over and show you the mounting hardware. Because on the underside we have a 1/4 inch coarse connector, and that's not exactly common in microphones. In fact, the standard sizing you're going to see is going to be 5/8 of an inch coarse, or less likely, but still possible, 3/8 of an inch coarse. Whereas 1/4 inch coarse tends to be reserved for cameras. Fortunately, there are adapters on the market that will allow you to use this microphone with your existing microphone accessories, but don't worry, there are plenty of camera accessories that can easily double as microphone accessories. Heck, up until recently, I was using my camera tripod to hold my mics while doing audio tests, so yeah, it's not exactly impossible. And in fact, if I wanted to, I could even use the microphone with my overhead rig and have a bit of a boom mic situation going on here, so that's kinda neat. Of course, it wasn't the manufacturer's intention to make you source your own mounting hardware, so they included some for you. First off, we have this little mounting bracket right here that screws in on the underside, and even better, it's ball and socket. So if I were to just loosen this right here, I have a ton of additional motion. I'll just tighten that back up and bring in the tripod it attaches to, which I should add doubles as a handle. It's not my first time tackling an accessory like this. I'll go ahead and link to that now, but if I bring this down here, there we go, straighten up the mic, as best I can anyway, we are good to go. Ta-da! And in fact, this is the perfect position to point out yet another one of the differences between this mic and the other USB condensers on the market. And that's the fact that it is a front address microphone. And I know some of you are probably out there wondering what other types of microphones there are aside from front address, and well, one of the more common ones would have to be a side address microphone, which basically means you talk into the side of the mic while you have it oriented like so. However, a lot of people that are new to recording have no idea this is a thing, so they default to everything they've seen in the past, which is you talk into the front of the mic, aka a front address, and I've seen quite a few AT2020s and Blue Yetis in this kind of configuration where people are trying to talk into here. And yes, I have used an AT2020 and Blue Yeti in a configuration like this, but in those cases I was trying to record something that was on the table, had it pointed like so, and all was well in the world. However, if you're trying to record normally and you have it like this, all you're going to be recording is the table or the ceiling, and that's not exactly what you want to have happen. I've seen way too many people in the content creator communities that I'm a part of wonder why their $100 microphone sounds like poop. And that's why. So by going with the front address mic, they made this very newbie friendly. Next up on our list of features and differences, we have the back of the mic. In fact, let me go ahead and take it off of the tripod while I demonstrate this portion, because there is a good bit going on here. First off, we have the USB port, and as you can see, this is USB Type-C. Pretty much every other USB microphone on the market is going to be using some version of USB 2.0, either USB-B, which is that large kind of square chunky connector, or the more familiar mini or micro USB. In this case, since we have C, it can take advantage of a whole lot of additional stuff. And to stop the pedants in their tracks before they get to the comment section, yes, I know USB Type-C is a cable, not a standard, so it could be USB 2.0 on the inside. That's not what I'm trying to get at. Now, one of the key differences between USB-C and all those other connectors that I mentioned is the fact that you have a lot more freedom when indexing the cable for plugging. So if you're trying to plug it in like so, or if you happen to have it quote-unquote upside down like so, you're still good to go. As long as your rotation is a factor of 180 degrees, you're fine. Another advantage of USB-C has to be the amount of power that you can throw if you have it plugged into a USB 3.0 port. I currently have a 10-foot cable plugged in, though the mic does come with a very nice 6-foot fabric-coated cable, I should add, and it's working without a hitch. I've tried similar length cable with USB 2.0 microphones, and they'll either not get enough power to turn on, or if they do, they disconnect and reconnect constantly, rendering them effectively useless. Next, let's talk about this very large button in the middle of the microphone, because it actually ties into the LEDs you're seeing right now. This is your mode selector button. And if you have a solid blue LED like you see right now, that means the microphone is currently in cardioid mode. If you give it a short press, what'll happen is you'll switch to a breathing LED pattern, and this means that the microphone is in noise cancellation mode. More on that later. If you were to hold it in for a little bit and wait for it to switch to red, this means your microphone is muted. And of course, do a long press to get back to whatever mode you were previously in, and a short press to switch between them. Next up, let's talk about this little headphone jack there. This serves two purposes. The obvious purpose is the fact that it allows you to listen to your PC's audio while you're using the mic. The other purpose is actually one of my favorites. It is number one on my list of favorite microphone features, and that is the fact that it allows you to hear yourself in your headphones. And the name for this feature is zero latency monitoring. And I don't think it gets enough love. In fact, I plan an entire video essay on the topic as to why it's good and why you should use it, but for now, let's just leave it there. It exists, and if you're not a fan of using zero latency monitoring or even just hearing your voice in general, because I know a lot of people starting off in content creation aren't, you can disable that feature from inside your operating system. Last but not least, let's talk about this little dial right here. This is a volume adjustment dial, though sadly it is not for adjusting the volume of the microphone. Instead, it's for adjusting your system volume so that you're not blowing your ears out when you're gaming and you don't have to fiddle with your computer directly if you want to change that. Admittedly, I like having the ability to adjust my volume on the microphone itself, but that's not a common feature on microphones in this price range anyways, so I can live without it. Now for today's video, I'm actually going to be doing something a little bit different at this part, but it still starts off with the speaker stick. So let's fire that up and get a proper pickup pattern test, shall we? Alright, so for the cardioid pickup pattern mode on this microphone, it definitely looks like a cardioid pickup pattern. The audio is louder in the front than it is in the back, but this mic still has one additional mode, and that's the noise cancellation mode. It's still technically cardioid, but it brings something extra to the party. So let's fire that up and fire the speaker stick back up. Okay, that's actually impressive. I'm looking at the waveform in Audacity right now, And that's definitely taken a lot of the tooth out of the audio. You've probably heard that yourself. Now, for that little something extra, I just so happen to have this half-size keyboard with Kale Blue switches. And for those of you who don't know what Kale Blue switches are, they're just a clone of Cherry MX Blues. So let me bring this down behind the microphone, switch it back to the cardioid mode, and have a little fun with the keys. And judging by Audacity, you heard all of that. Now, admittedly, this is a worst case scenario placement, but I know quite a few content creators that kinda do have their keyboard that close to their mic. They don't have a boom arm or other kinds of equipment to suspend it, so this is potentially a hazard. Now let's switch back to the noise cancellation mode and go from there. I see almost nothing in Audacity, and you probably heard the occasional little clack, but the noise cancellation mode did a great job cutting that out. Now let's hop over to Audacity for the next part of this audio test, shall we? And welcome to Audacity. Right now I'm about 4 inches or so away from the microphone to take advantage of the proximity effect. And of course, I'm not only using a pop filter, but I'm also talking off axis just in case one or two plosives try to slip by. I've got the digital gain on the PC set to about 60%, and as you can see, I'm still coming in quite loud and clear. And as such, if I were to take a step back and talk more directly towards the microphone, you really can't hear that much of a difference, and that's awesome. That little joke I made earlier about using this as a boom mic might actually be something you'd want to do. Of course, the fact that I'm this far away from the microphone, about 1.5, 2 feet, does mean that it will pick up certain things behind you, but fortunately it is a cardioid microphone, so it's going to pick up less of your computer if you're using this mic for things like streaming. In fact, my laptop's not that far away, and it's much quieter than it's been in other microphone tests. Of course, this mic does have a feature specifically intended to be used in situations where things might get a little bit louder than you'd like them. So if I just reach back behind the microphone and click that button, I can switch over to noise cancellation mode. Now, once again, I'm within proximity effect range of the microphone, so you can see how I sound using noise cancellation mode, and when I'm back at about 1.5 to 2 feet. Now, I can hear it, and you can probably see it in the waveform, but this does change up the sound profile quite distinctly. And kind of sounds a bit like a cell phone call because it is using what I believe to be a similar method of noise cancellation that you see in a lot of cell phones. Specifically, it's monitoring the background audio, probably using some additional mics hidden behind that mid-band grill, and then it's taking what it hears with those mics and subtracting it from the main audio. And it's maybe throwing in a noise gate for good measure. Now, of course, because my voice is reflecting behind, some of what I say will be picked up by those additional microphones and subtracted from the main signal, which is why it sounds significantly different. And thus, I think it's not an ideal thing to use all the time, but if you're going to be in a place where you can't control the background noise and you don't want to drag an additional dynamic mic with you, or heck, the dynamic mic isn't cutting out enough because I've had that issue pop up before, this will get you through. Anyway, now that I've introduced you to this feature, let me pop back over to cardioid mode and go on to Fritcher. And welcome to Fritcher. Now, I'm still at about the 1.5 to 2 foot range, so that I'm not coloring this test with a proximity effect, but admittedly that won't make a huge difference during this test simply because I'm using spoken word and not singing or instruments. Anyway, according to the specs on this microphone, it is a 96 kHz 24-bit mic with a frequency response range between 20 Hz and 20 kHz. Now, I've been recording everything since I entered Audacity at 96 kHz 24-bit, though admittedly you're not going to be hearing that thanks to how compressed the audio will be on YouTube. But of course, that higher resolution is extremely useful when going into post-processing, so I use it whenever possible. Now, as you can see, the microphone is responding across all of the frequencies that Fritcher can pick up, but there is a significant amount of drop off in the higher frequency range, about where human hearing starts to cut off anyway, so that's not a huge deal. And of course, I happen to like the sound of the lower frequencies. I emphasize those where I can, and this actually doesn't leave things sounding muddy, so it all works out in the end. Now, let me switch over to noise cancellation mode so you can see just how different things look in the frequency response pattern. And there we go. As you can see, there's a little bit of a hump that's formed in the upper frequencies that wasn't there when using the standard cardioid mode. Those are being emphasized while some of the frequencies beforehand are almost non-existent. And it's nice to see the differences between the two sound profiles being emphasized so much. What can I say? I like raw data. Now let me swap back to cardioid mode so I can wrap things up. All in all, I think this mic actually packs in a ton of features for its price point. Yes, it only comes with the tripod, but it has two of my top 3 features, those being the ability to monitor yourself in real time as well as a mute function. It has a dial to control your PC's audio for ease while using this when gaming, and of course it has that noise cancellation mode, which is great in audio emergencies. And all of this for around $50. Heck, I'm even going to award THRONMAX with bonus points for the fact that this is a noob-friendly microphone that will hopefully not spend its time recording the table, unlike those unfortunate Yetis and AT2020s I mentioned earlier. So if you like everything you've seen and heard so far, I'm going to go ahead and leave an Amazon link down in the description below, and then get back to quite a few more mics that I need to review. So, until next time, this is your guy Cly, signing off.